be honest, grief isn't something celebrities talk about openly all that often. But when they do, it hits different. And that's exactly what happened when Aubrey Plaza sat down with Amy Poehler on her podcast, A Good Hang with Amy Poehler. For those who remember them as the hilarious duo from Parks and Recreation, this reunion came with a much deeper, more emotional tone. Aubrey, known for her deadpan humor and quirky roles, opened up in a way that was raw, honest, and incredibly human. She spoke about the loss of her husband, filmmaker Jeff Baena, who passed away earlier this year in January. Her words weren't rehearsed or sugar-coated, they were real. And in just a few moments, she gave us a rare, powerful insight into what grief actually feels like when you're trying to keep moving through life. This kind of raw, emotional storytelling isn't just good podcast content, it's a public service. It opens the door for conversations that many people are afraid to have. And with mental health becoming a bigger focus in the entertainment world, moments like this matter. They show that celebrities are human too. They lose, they grieve, they struggle. And by sharing those truths, they help normalize the full range of human experience. Aubrey Plaza didn't have to speak about Jeff's passing, but she chose to. And in doing so, she gave voice to something millions of people deal with every day. It's also worth noting how this episode fits into a larger cultural shift. More and more celebrities are using platforms like podcasts to go deeper, to tell stories they can't fit into a late-night talk show appearance or a 2-minute red carpet soundbite. And audiences are responding to that. They want the truth, not the highlight reel. Aubrey's conversation with Amy Poehler is a perfect example of that shift. It wasn't polished or perfect, but it was real. And in a media landscape full of clickbait, for longtime fans of Parks and Rec, seeing April and Leslie reconnect like this brought a wave of nostalgia, but with new meaning. These two characters once made us laugh about fictional problems in a fictional town. Now, their real-life counterparts are giving us something much deeper. A reminder that even when life takes heartbreaking turns, connection, friendship, and openness can help light the way forward. The podcast episode wasn't just about grief. It was about holding space for each other, about being present, and about faith. As this story continues to resonate, one thing is clear. Aubrey Plaza's courage to speak out has started a much-needed conversation. It reminds us all that grief is messy, ongoing, and deeply human. It looks different for everyone, and it doesn't follow a schedule. And maybe, just maybe, the best way to deal with it isn't to avoid it, but to talk about it, to name it, to give it room. And in that space, healing can begin. If you haven't listened to the episode yet, give it a shot. It's more than just a podcast. It's a reminder that behind every public persona is a real person trying to navigate life just like the rest of us. During the podcast, Amy gently asked Aubrey how she was doing in that moment. It was a simple question, but the answer was anything but. Aubrey paused and responded with, "Right in this very, very present moment, I feel happy to be with you." That opening line alone sets the tone for what follows. She's not pretending everything's fine, but she's also not drowning in sadness. She's somewhere in between. She said she feels grateful to still be functioning, to be moving through the world, but she admitted that it's a daily struggle. Her honesty was so relatable, so unfiltered, that it really made listeners stop and reflect. You could hear in her voice that she's not just surviving. She's learning to live with the grief, day by day, breath by breath. Then came the metaphor that captured everyone's attention. Aubrey compared her grief to the horror movie The Gorge. Now, if you haven't seen it, imagine a massive dark pit filled with monsters. That's how she visualizes grief. She described it as a giant ocean of awfulness that's always there, sometimes just in her peripheral vision, sometimes pulling her in. She said, "At all times, there's like a giant ocean of just awfulness that's like right there, and I can see it." And depending on the day, she either dives in, looks at it from a distance, or tries to escape it. That visual hit hard, because honestly, that's how grief feels for a lot of people. It never disappears. It just sits there, shifting and changing, but always present. What makes this conversation even more powerful is who Aubrey Plaza is in the public eye. She's often seen as this eccentric, tough, witty personality, someone who doesn't show vulnerability easily. That's part of why this moment on Amy Poehler's podcast was so impactful. It's not just about what she said, it's about who said it. Aubrey letting down that emotional wall showed a side of her that fans rarely see. It wasn't a publicity stunt or a press tour confession. It was one friend talking to another and inviting the world to listen in. It made grief feel less like something to hide and more like something that's just part of life. Amy Poehler, for her part, handled the conversation with grace and empathy. She didn't interrupt, overreact, or shift the topic too quickly. She let Aubrey speak, really speak, and created a space where honesty could live without judgment. It's rare to see that in media interviews these days, where everything feels edited, rehearsed, and safe. This was different. Amy and Aubrey's connection goes way back, and that familiarity created a comfort zone where real emotion could surface. Amy's gentle support made the entire moment feel more intimate and meaningful, not just for Aubrey, but for everyone listening. Let's take a moment to remember Jeff Baena, the man at the center of this deep emotional moment. Jeff wasn't just Aubrey's husband. He was a filmmaker with a distinct voice and creative vision. The two had been together for over a decade and worked on multiple projects together. Their relationship was both personal and professional, blending life and art in a unique way. Losing someone like that isn't just about heartbreak. It's about losing a creative partner, a daily routine, a shared world. Aubrey's grief reflects all of that. It's layered, complicated, and evolving. And hearing her talk about it reminds us how love and loss are deeply intertwined. The response to Aubrey's appearance on the podcast was overwhelming. Fans and fellow celebrities took to social media to express their support and admiration. People praised her vulnerability, her honesty, and the courage it takes to talk about loss in such a public setting. Others shared their own grief stories, saying Aubrey's words made them feel seen. That's the power of open conversations. When one person dares to speak their truth, it creates a ripple effect. It shows others that it's okay to feel what they're feeling. That grief isn't weakness. It's a reflection of deep love. There's also something profoundly important about the way Aubrey described her grief, not as something to fix or erase, but as something to live with. In a world obsessed with moving on, her words remind us that healing doesn't mean forgetting. It doesn't mean getting over it. Sometimes healing just means showing up, getting out of bed, laughing when you can, crying when you have to, and letting yourself feel all of it, without shame. That's the message Aubrey brought to the table, and it's one that resonates far beyond celebrity culture. In the podcast, Aubrey also shared a bit about how she's trying to stay grounded. She mentioned the importance of gratitude, even in the middle of grief. It's not always easy, she admitted, but it's something she's clinging to, feeling grateful to still have friends, work, purpose, even as she carries that ocean of awfulness inside her. Gratitude doesn't cancel out grief, but it can make the load just a little lighter. That mindset is something many listeners found both comforting and empowering. It's not about pretending everything's fine. It's about noticing what is still good, even when everything hurts. Saying the hard stuff with compassion. Kind of honesty stands out.